Now, if the current posture of the Nigerian government is anything to go by towards the outcry for the release of Nnamdi Kanu, the founder and leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, then plights, fears and despair of Southeast residents and Indigo so far is far from over. This is because the Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led administration has seemingly adopted a silent and indifferent stance amid continued appeals and violent protests in the Southeast for the release of Kanu, who has been in detention as a prisoner of conscience since June 2021. Kanu's detention came after his extraordinary rendition from Kenya. He was then thrown into the Department of State Services cell during the former Muhammadu Buhari presidency. According to the then Buhari government, Kanu was arrested abroad and brought back to answer for a 15-count terrorism-related charges. And while many, especially critics, applauded the government's move, claiming that Kanu's rhetoric exacerbates ethnic tensions and threatens national unity, others argue that the IPOB leader was only championing the rights of the marginalized Igbo people and calling attention to the perceived injustices they face within Nigeria. However, the advent of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government on May 29, 2023 has not only ignited hope that the Igbos will be treated fairly by his government, but also renewed calls and pressures for Nnamdi Kanu's release. Now, barely 1 month into his administration, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has had conversations with several concerned groups, such as Governors Charles Soludo of Anambra State and Peter Mba of Enugu State, plus the President General of the Apex Igbo Social Cultural Organization, Ohaneze Ndigbo, on the release of Nnamdi Kanu. However, Aloy Ejimakor, special counsel to Nnamdi Kanu, urged President Tinubu not to behave like his predecessor, who took calls for self-determination as a personal vendetta against Kanu. Ejimakor, in a tweet he made yesterday, said Kanu's self-determination was against the Nigerian state and not President Tinubu. I have the telephone Barrister Eze Eluche, who is a legal practitioner, a public affairs commentator, as well as a political enthusiast. Barrister, good afternoon and welcome to the World News at 12.
Yeah, good afternoon and thank you for having me.
Barrister, you just heard my intro on the story on the way Nnamdi Kanu was arrested, and so far the government's aura, the government's disposition towards the situation in the Southeast. Although in some states yesterday, Simon Ekpa, the notorious IPOB agitator, enforced sit-at-home, but some of the states in the Southeast did not obey or did not respond to it, even if some communities experienced where the miscreants, destroyed their goods and flogged a couple of them on the road, destroyed some of their property. But there are calls on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to try as soon as possible to address the problem in the Southeast. Do you think he will do anything based on his body language so far?
Well, the reality is that yes, the government of Tinubu, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has to do something at least. I mean, they have to obey court orders. There have been subsisting court orders for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. Okay. And then the government wants to be known as a government that is based on the rule of law. They have to comply with subsisting court orders. If the government starts on a very wrong note, like Tinubu are starting now, by not obeying court orders and making it appear as if it's a continuation of the vendetta that Buhari had against this Nnamdi Kanu fellow, then it will be very, very unfortunate. So we hope that this will be a government that is based on the rule of law, that will respect and obey court orders, and start by obeying the order that asks for that ordered the release of Nnamdi Kanu. The lack of seriousness on the part of government. You brought somebody in over a year ago. You said he had committed so many offenses, and the government is unable to even bring him for any court for any real trial. Rather, you just detain somebody unnecessarily and wastefully. So we hope that there will be a new lease of life, new direction, new sense of purpose towards the rule of law under this administration.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Barrister. Also, there is another question I want to ask concerning this. It seems, according to the lawyer, Aloy Ejimakor, he actually made a statement that Nnamdi Kanu's situation, or rather behavior, is not about, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It is not about the government. It is about the self-determination and self-actualization of Biafra. But it almost feels like a couple of people have not been properly educated on how the format should be. and the trend at which we've been saying the enforcement for the voice to be heard. Now, a lot of the plea now is these agitators who have, kind of, submerged a couple of those who reside in the southeast from going about their businesses. They've stalled educational activities, and it's actually distracting investors from coming into the state. Even a couple of Southeasterners who reside in other urban areas find it difficult to actually go home. How do you think the state governments, that is the Southeastern region, should do something? How should they do something about it as soon as possible? Because the activities of this guy seems brazen. It almost feels like somebody is somewhere doing something or nudging them to do what they're doing. And it's like the government cannot do anything about these boys, or do not know where they're staying, where they're residing, where they're hiding, or who is sponsoring them. How soon should the state governors, put their feet on the ground to tackle this problem?
Now, perhaps it's time to enlighten the people or your listeners on the realities of what is on ground in the Southeast.
Okay.
What has been going on for quite a long time is the quest for justice, the quest for equality, the quest for self-actualization. And this may not be made. Some people have come up under different names. Some have named it Biafra, but that is even by the way.
Okay.
The issue is there is a quest, there is a need for justice in the Southeast, just to be treated like other parts of this country are treated. And it is this quest has been on before even the advent or even birth of Mazin and the Kanu. So summarizing it as if it was an Nnamdi Kanu issue is very, very wrong. Now, what has happened so far is that at different times, different characters or different people have come up and appeared to play to the gallery and champion this cause. Before Nnamdi Kanu, we used to have somebody called Wazirike, who had a group called Masop. He came and he made his own noise and went away. Now we have a Nnamdi Kanu who is also trying to play the same cause. But the fundamental issue which the Nigerian state has failed to address is the issue of the quest for justice, self-actualization, and self-governance in the Southeast. And this is a perennial quest that will continue and will continue. For the government in the Southeast, the reality is this. In the Southeast, there are people in the Southeast that are mostly traders, they are mostly farmers, and they want to live their life and move on. What has happened is that we have criminal elements who hiding under the cloak of this IPOB or ESN go about doing ad hoc criminal activities. They storm different markets at different villages in rural areas, and just still, there is no organized structure, there is no organized process. Because what you do is, at times you see it happen in somewhere in Bise, in Enugu State, in Ebonyi, but there is no structured or organized armed whatever against that you're seeing. It's just ad hoc activities. And they all claim to be working on the behest of IPOB, which is not true. The IPOB leadership has even distanced itself from this sit-at-home calls for every Monday. So you now ask yourself, who are the ones undertaking this venture, this diabolical venture? And it is usually the criminal elements. What is worrying people in the South is why has the police, the law enforcement agencies, why have they failed to do their job? Why have they failed to nip this in the bud? Why have they failed to come out and confront these criminal elements? Because that is what they are, the criminal elements. And at times, there is even the belief in the Southeast that the law enforcement agencies are the ones colluding or even instigating and causing this mayhem. Because you cannot tell me that a group of 8 criminals would just block a major road for 1 hour and no police or military convoy will come and dislodge them. Meanwhile, but in other areas, you see police checkpoints every 3 or 4 kilometers. That gives the people the impression that it is the security agencies who are colluding with these criminal elements to give the impression that the Southeast is not a welcome and safe place for investors. So yeah, it's quite a complex issue, but then people have to understand that the Igbos are not violent. The Igbos still have a sacred reverence for blood, so nobody sheds blood. So who are the ones doing this? When you now juxtapose this with the fact that not too long ago, Asaido Kubo came out and right? In Asoro, told the international community, told everybody that he has his gang, he has his gangmen who are operating in the southeast. You begin to wonder, who are these so-called unknown gunmen? Who are these rascal elements who are trying to cause mayhem and demarket the southeast? Nobody demarkets himself. So there is the belief in the southeast that these demarketers, these criminal elements are mostly external. Though the thought is that some of them may be speaking evil here and there, but that does not mean that they are evils, because nobody demarkets or wants his community.
All right, Barrister, thank you. Thank you for that incisive analysis. Let's move on to this particular development whereby the All Progressives Congress has told the Presidential Election Petition Court that there was absolutely nothing to defend in the separate petitions of the Labour Party and the PDP, saying it is needless to flog a dead horse. The ruling party declined to open its defense in the petition filed against it by the People's Democratic Party and its presidential candidate, Abubakar Atiku, challenging the conduct and declaration in the February 25 presidential election. Now, APC, through its lead counsel, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, came to the conclusion not to open defense in Atiku's petition after cross-examining the Senate Majority Leader, Michael Okpeyemi Bamidele, the star witness to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Fagbemi had subjected Senator Bamidele to rigorous questioning, during which the witness, who is a legal practitioner, admitted that Tinubu's election cannot be reversed on the strength of his forfeiture of $460,000 to the United States of America through a court order. The witness also, while responding to Fagbemi's questions, held that Tinubu was not arraigned, indicted, nor was he sentenced for any criminal charges by any American court, and that civil forfeiture cannot take the place of criminal trial and conviction. The witness further stated that the judgment of the U.S. court on the forfeiture of $460,000 has Tinubu's name, but not as a criminal suspect, but as a civil proceeding, insisting that it was a civil forfeiture and not a criminal one. Under further cross-examination by Fagbemi, the witness agreed that there cannot be a conviction without a charge, trial, indictment, and conviction. The witness said by the judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja in a suit filed by Labour Party against the Independent National Electoral Commission on the mode of collation of election results, INEC is at liberty to use any mode of collation it deems fit. Meanwhile, the court has given the respondents 10 days to file their final written addresses. The petitioner 7 days to respond and 5 days to reply on point of law. The presiding justice of the court, Justice Haruna Samani, said the parties would be communicated on the date for the adoption of the final written addresses. Barrister, here is a statement that he made that I took key note of. He said on the cross-examination by Fagbemi that INEC is at liberty to use any mode of collation it deems fit. What would you say to that statement by Bamidele?
Well, let me respond to what the saying they will not enter into defense or whatever, as if they were trying to rubbish the processes, is just being playing to the gallery. Because there are very critical issues which are in the public purview, which gives the fact that the APC has an overwhelming uphill task to overcome, a Herculean task to overcome to be able to sustain their so-called INEC victory. Number one is the issue of the 25% in Abuja, which is mandatory, which unfortunately for the APC, their candidate did not get. So was he supposed to have been sworn in as president? Secondly, is the issue of the forfeiture of over $400,000 US. What the Constitution provides for is when has the person paid a fine for any offense bordering on fraud or dishonesty. That is the exact words of the Constitution. It did not say that the person must be convicted. It says that the person pay a fine. And by all definition,
a fine was paid.
A fine was paid. And it was paid for the offense of drug trafficking and money laundering. Drug trafficking and money laundering, are they crimes that border on fraud and dishonesty? The clear answer is yes. So the posture of the APC that they have nothing to defend is just playing to the gallery, because there are very substantial constitutional issues which even goes to the very qualification of their candidates for the office of presidency. So they are just trying to pretend as if nothing is going, nothing happened. The other one is the issue of the dual citizenship, the various perjury, the lies that were said on oath. Because all these things are, when you present false documents or when you lie on oath, those are disqualifying elements for even the presidential elections. So the APC had very, very substantial things to battle, but I believe perhaps they felt overwhelmed by the amount of things that they have to contend with. And then the best at times, when you are overwhelmed by such and you don't even know where to start, you just say there's nothing to respond to. That is the approach, which is a brilliant approach, but in any reasonable court, any reasonable judicial process, it will not stand. Because that you don't have a defense to several allegations, several weighty constitutional allegations. That you don't have a defense does not mean that those who are alleging don't have any allegations against you. Because the allegations against you are there in black and white, and they're very solid. So that is the issue.
But Barrister, here the statement Bamidele made concerning the collation of results, that INEC can, in whatever method they deem fit, decide to collate results as they want to, so long as it is satisfactory to them. But in the Electoral Act, that was the reason why there was an update in the Electoral Act. And the idea was to curb any form of... Okay, go ahead, Barrister.
Yes, I agree. I have to tell you the question you're just trying to raise is very, very germane. Yeah. You see, anybody who says that where there is a law, INEC is a body set up under the law. INEC is bound by the law. It cannot, under any circumstance, do whatsoever it likes. Now, in this case, what is the law INEC is bound by? The number one law INEC is bound by is the Electoral Act 2022 as modified. The second law INEC is also bound by is the regulation for election mechanisms that INEC itself rolled out. Those regulations are factored and based on the Electoral Act. So those are the laws INEC must comply with. So it is falsehood of the highest order for anybody to tell you that an entity created by law can do whatsoever it likes. It is not true. It can never stand as the truth anywhere. You are created by law, so at any time, whatever you do, there must be recourse to the law. What does the law say? And in this instance, what the law provides, and what INEC regulations also provide, and what INEC officials have also said they will provide, is that there will be voting at the polling units, that those votes will be, the beavers will be, there will be upload of votes on the INEC portal. Instantaneous as soon as elections are completed. So that these things were not done means that INEC did not that it's amateurish to say or to claim that a body created by law can do whatsoever it likes. Not even Mr. President can do whatever he likes. When Mr. President is acting, he must ask his Attorney General or the requisite legal personnel, what does the law provide? Can I do this or can't I do this? If we ever suggest that anybody or any entity created by law can do whatsoever it likes, we are now talking of living in an animal kingdom. But I believe that Nigeria is still a federal republic governed by the rule of law. So the statement that the INEC can do whatever it likes with regard to how it counts or collates or announces results is falsehood. INEC must comply with the law, and that is what the court, hopefully, the court will ensure that INEC complies with the law, and where they didn't comply with the law, then the requisite remedial measures will be given.
But isn't it ironical that it was only one star witness that the APC could present to defend its case or defend its stance of their principal, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Wouldn't you say it's quite ironical to have that scenario play out at the Presidential Election Tribunal Court?
No, I mean, like for instance, it was good that INEC did not even present any witness, because I mean, what was it coming to?
They presented one person.
Yes, they did. But even the person that presented, what did you come to say in court? That only 31% of the votes were uploaded on the IREC portal, or the calculations that are right. That means you have only 31% of the results certified. So on what basis did you announce the results of the elections? And with regard to the APC, they only brought in one person also. What do you want them to defend? The results are there. For instance, in Abuja. Who will they present to make magic on that issue? It is also very clear that Mr. Tinubu paid over $450,000 as fine for an offense bordering on fraud and dishonesty. So what else do they want them to present? So I think they realized that, look, if we keep on bringing witnesses, we will even expose ourselves the more. So it was more of damage control, and then they now hope that maybe the courts will decide based on that premise that they have nothing to defend. But I hope, and I do believe that these members of the panel of the Presidential Election Tribunal realize that Nigerians the world, in fact, is looking up to them, hoping that they live up to the expectations of the judiciary, up to the high oath of office they took as judicial officers, and ensure that the law is implemented to the court and justice is done to all the parties in this case and to Nigerians, because Nigerians are also parties to this matter. Once you voted, or you have a registered voter's card, or you are a citizen of Nigeria, you are a party to this suit, because the determination of who will rule Nigeria is of primary importance to all Nigerians. So we hope that the court will do justice to Nigerians.
All right, that Barrister Ezelucha, I really, really do appreciate you for your input on the World News at 12. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
You too, sir. All right, still on the World News at 12, we have the scenario where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on Wednesday was with the former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Pius Ayim, and ex-National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Olisami II, at the presidential villa. Now, former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Pius Ayim, said they were on a state visit to President Bola Tinubu yesterday as well, who was with the former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, as well stated that Metu and Ayim arrived together at the Aso Villa on Wednesday afternoon and went straight to the president's office for a closed-door meeting. Ayim was a PDP presidential aspirant for the 2023 election, while Metu just resigned from the same party in October 2022. As of the time of filing this report, the details of the meeting are unknown. The meeting comes at a time when President Tinubu is about to submit a ministerial nomination list to the Senate for screening. Since Tinubu's inauguration on May 29, 2023, he has received members of the major opposition party and the New Nigeria People's Party (NNPP), including its flag bearer in the last election, Rabiu Kwankwaso. Now, the Federal University of Technology, Akure, has begun the test run of an application developed by a student of the institution. This is contained in a statement on Thursday in Akure by the institution's Deputy Director, Corporate Communications, Mr. Adegbenro Adebanjo. He disclosed that following the approval of the Vice Chancellor of the Federal University of Technology, Akure, Professor Adenike Oladiji, the library of the institution has begun the pilot test run of a software developed by a student for access control. The software, named TouchNot, developed by a team led by a 400-level student of the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, Mr. Daniel Adeniyi, is now being used to regulate entry and exit of students into the Albert Ilemobade Library and to monitor the library's activities. He stated further that Adeniyi explained that the major advantage of the software was that it provided an easy-to-use identification system that helped the security unit to monitor the activities that would go on in the library. According to him, TouchNot provides an internet server that contains students' information and it comes with an internet connection. He said that the software application server was also well secure. You're currently listening to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. After the break, we'll bring you foreign stories. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, on stories outside the shores of Nigeria, Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin, who led a short-lived rebellion in Russia last month, is in Russia, not Belarus, and that is what the leader of the Belarusian government said. Prigozhin's whereabouts have been a mystery since the mutiny. Under the deal to end the standoff, charges against him were dropped and he was offered to move to Belarus. But on Thursday, Belarus leader Alexander Lukashenko said, as for Prigozhin, he is in St. Petersburg, he is not on the territory of Belarus. In response to Mr. Lukashenko's remarks, the Kremlin said it was not following Mr. Prigozhin's movement. Mr. Lukashenko had helped broker the deal to end the mutiny, and just over a week ago said Prigozhin had arrived in Belarus. It has since made several flights between St. Petersburg and Moscow, although it is not clear if Prigozhin has been on board. On Thursday, Mr. Lukashenko stated that as far as they know, the rest of the Wagner fighters were still at their bases, which could include eastern Ukraine or a training base in Russia's Krasnodar region. To wrap up the world news at 12, here again are the top stories. You heard that the federal government is defiant as mayhem escalates in Southeast. APC closes case, says no need flogging a dead horse. Tinubu meets with Pius Aim Ulisamitu in Aso Villa. Futa begins test run of app developed by student. And on stories outside the shores of Nigeria,